This is live from my office. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. I am very excited to bring you another edition of The Deep Six. My name is Ross Cochran. I'm the executive producer of Live from My Office. And The Deep Six is a new limited podcast series from the Live from My Office universe featuring Steve Cochran and Patty Steele. The Deep Six is the only news podcast you need, but make sure you've subscribed to Live from My Office wherever you hear this so you never miss an episode. Thanks for listening.
The Deep Six. 6 stories from your world in 30 minutes or less. Hosted by Patty Steele and Steve Cochran. The Deep Six is on.
Well, it's that time again for the Deep Six. Patty Steele, Steve Cochran, Patty from WCBS-FM in New York. Mornings with Scott Shannon every morning. And Patty is great, and I highly recommend you listen live or online. And you can hear my podcast live from my office.
I highly recommend you listen.
Well, that's nice of you. How are you, Patty?
I'm dandy. How are you?
I'm doing fine. We got a nice response to the first couple episodes of the Deep Six, emails and Twitter messages and direct messages and tweets and situations. So thank you for that.
Yep.
We'll tell you how you can contact us. You want to dive in? Should we dive in?
I think we should dive right in.
The Deep Six. Story number 1.
Oprah's favorite things list is out. I'm going to fly through these. You want to know what's on it?
I do. I absolutely do.
The Echo Show 10. It's from the fine people at Amazon because God knows they need some more money. And it's kind of an enhancement to your Alexa. It can go with you. It's kind of a mobile, carry it along kind of Alexa thing to help you look stuff up and all those things. I don't know why I need this other than my phone. It's $250 from Amazon. Oprah says you have to have it. The Evermill Core Countertop Spice Rack.
Okay.
I have never thought about a spice rack in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'll think about it now. Is it a big deal, a spice rack?
Oh my God. You should see I have a spice drawer that was built in my kitchen.
Okay.
I probably have 8 rows and maybe 10 at least. So I probably have 100 different bottles of spices in there, and I don't have enough room. So underneath that is a big deep drawer where I keep things I don't access quite as much.
Not in the current rotation.
Right, exactly. Like I'll get a crush, say, on, dried basil
yeah.
or some kind of little weird nut that I can grind up. And so I'll use that for a while and then, I'm bored with that. Throw it in the big drawer and move something else up.
Well, this is the Evermill Core Countertop Spice Rack. Very stylish, $199.
Wow, that's expensive.
It is for a spice rack, right?
Yeah. How many? Does it tell you how much it holds?
It looks like there's 10 jars here.
Oh, and do they come with the spices?
They do actually come with the spices.
They're very expensive spices. Okay.
We should explain, by the way, Patty's in New York and I'm in Chicago, which is why she can't see everything I have here, or same from my vantage point. Number 3, Snap Clean Hands. It's a little wonder that makes hand sanitizers hands-free. Touchless motion sensing technology delivers a moisturizing mist of protection in one of 4 scents. And it looks good on your counter next to your spice rack.
Exactly. So if you get like garlic on your fingers, then you hit that and they smell nice.
Yeah, and it's $64.
Right.
So,
okay.
Number 4 on Oprah's list, the Life You Want Planner. She says it'll change your life, even if you only do half of it. Part weekly planner, part intention journal. It was created by the Oprah Daily team. I'm not exaggerating when I say this. I have over $10 billion worth of planners and calendars and things that I've tried to use to get organized in my life. This one's fairly reasonable. It's $25, but you know what? I'm done buying them. I'm the problem.
You're planning not to buy them. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. I need to buy that, write it down that I'm not going to buy it. That's so confusing.
Well, that's the thing. You see, I embrace spontaneity and lack of planning. It hasn't gotten me anywhere in my life. So maybe I should buy that.
Number 5 is something called the Arc Carbonator 3. And it's an eco-friendly option featured on Oprah's list in 2018. But she's mentioning it again because she said it's stunning and people may have forgotten about it. I say she didn't do all of her homework and she threw it in as an item at the last minute.
And I say, what the hell is it?
It allows it fizzes your drinks. It puts carbonation in your water and things like that.
I actually have a water dispenser that does that.
Oh, you do?
Interestingly,
So
it has a third button on it.
Yeah, you don't need this. It's $219.
No, I don't need that.
How about a material knives and stand? Show off your skills in the kitchen with a sleek knife that can be displayed on a magnetic wooden stand. The knives are very sharp, reliable enough, thanks to Japanese steel and high carbon. 3 knives and the magnetic stand, which looks like wood, so it's stylish. It looks like the knives are floating, so it's good for a nightmare as well.
Right.
And it's $195.
It makes me a little nervous. I like to see that band go across the knives. So if I, bump into it, the knife doesn't fall out and stab me in the chest.
That ruins dinner.
That ruins dinner.
Every time you've been stabbed in the chest, you just don't have the kind of evening you want.
Exactly.
Number 7 is called the Philips Pasta Maker Plus. It's $300. The AUA. I'm not having a stroke, I promise. The Ala Carver Lux Smart Photo Frame. You can select an infinite number of pictures and the digital memory keeper will rotate them. Again, it's been around for a while. I just don't feel like Oprah's committed to the list the way she used to be.
Yeah. She's like, oh God, we got to do this again.
Your total package Yeti bread maker comes in at number 9. It is what it sounds like. It's a very stylish looking bread maker machine. It's $120. And something called the Love Bowl.
That I need.
Rose quartz happens to be the stone that symbolizes unconditional love. So Oprah said this unique gift will convey you care. The polished gems come in a heart-shaped pink onyx bowl that's definitely display worthy. So you're putting your romanticism and your heart out for everyone else to see. It's $180. She also has a stylish cutting board on here. The hydro rowing machine, which is one of the hottest exercise crazes.
Oh, yeah. I get ads for that on my phone all the time lately. They trying to tell me something. Yeah.
A waffle maker that allows you to make stuffed waffles, sort of like a stuffed pizza kind of.
Or a stuffed burger, right?
Yeah. And charging pads are on here as well. A rectangular baker, dishwasher safe stoneware piece. I just have a sense as I scroll through the list here that there's no other items that Oprah can feature. They've all been done. She's just going with varieties of different things. They've all been done before.
You know what's weird about that is I was looking at the Amazon list of tech gifts for this season.
Yep.
It's kind of the same thing. They have Apple AirPods Pro, and all that is a more expensive third version of the AirPods for like almost $200. They have noise canceling headphones from Sony, been there. They have a handheld Nintendo game for kids, been there. A Fujifilm Instax mini instant camera. So you get little tiny pictures. A smart TV, Kindle, wireless earbuds from Jabra, GoPro waterproof action camera. I mean, this is all stuff. And the 5th version of the Fitbit Charge. These are
it's updates on stuff we already have.
It's they do have a DJI mini foldable drone. Who doesn't want to fold up their drone from time to time?
It sounds personal.
Now, here's the thing. I ran into a couple other things that I thought were very interesting that we didn't talk about. First of all, there's the new iPhone they're saying that isn't out yet, but will be soon, will be able to detect if you've been in a car crash and will call 911 since you're going to be lying there unconscious and tell them where you are. There is
so you don't have to go, Siri, I'm bleeding.
Right.
And then Siri makes the call because you could be knocked out.
Or Siri,
yeah.
You don't have to do that. There is this new touchscreen they're working on. Again, not out yet. Sometimes like we do a lot of shopping online, right? And one of the things I dislike most is that I can't touch the fabric of something I'm buying and see is this going to be scratchy? Is it going to be soft? What's this going to feel like? They are literally working on a touch screen that will allow you to touch and feel. So you see me here, I'm touching you right now.
Yes,
and I
can
could
feel that.
feel your face if I was doing that.
I'm new to shave.
The only thing I felt that the only thing that concerns me about it is what the porn industry would do with that screen.
Oh, and you know what? Here's the thing, and I don't know it because I don't look at those sites ever, as far as you know. But the porn industry, and people don't want to hear this, but it's true. NASA and the porn industry have created more technological breakthroughs and have been at the forefront of all of it. The things, I mean, things like buying things online. You think Jeff Bezos invented that? It was invented by the porn industry.
Right, because nobody wanted to walk into one of those cringy stores and buy something.
Right. You don't have to go to the back room and through the swinging doors, as far as I know.
And maybe one of my favorite items that nobody's talking about, but they should be, is the new Roomba vacuum. Well, apparently, don't have even the first generation Roomba. But apparently the bane of a Roomba's existence is running into a pile of dog or kitty crap. And it really can totally screw up the works permanently when it runs over. Yeah. So you go to work and your vacuum is kind of doing its job while you're at work. And in the meantime, your pup takes a little bathroom break in the middle of the floor. Roomba runs over it. Goodbye, $700 device. The new Roomba will now put the skids on, sorry, no pun intended, and will look and go, whoa, don't want to run over that, and can go around it. It can sense dog poop and go around.
It's good. Well, look, obviously that's great. You don't want to ruin your $700 thing, and you don't want to smush that down into your carpet. Having said that, what is Roomba coming out with? They'll clean it up, because I'm telling you right now.
Thank you.
I would get a new dog tomorrow if Roomba would follow me down the sidewalk and clean up after the dog.
And around the house when they're puppies and you're trying to housebreak them, desperately what you need is something to just pop out of the wall and go, let me take care of that for you. Spray, scoop it up. Goodbye.
The few times that I've taken care of other people's dogs since the we've had dogs forever, and about 3 or 4 years ago we lost our last dog. We haven't replaced the dog, but I was never one that would feel good about picking up the poo. Not that anybody feels good about it, but to me, if there's one thing I would endorse socialism on, it would be this. And that's my dog poops in your yard occasionally. Your dog poops in my yard occasionally. It's all fertilizer. Let's all try to get along.
It's just that when they do it on the walk up to your house,
that's not good.
Or they deposit it right where your kids are playing outside.
Nope, that's not good. So I get why it needs to be cleaned up, but I also think you need to take a look at your dog when you're cleaning it up, because a dog's looking over his shoulder going, dude, what's happening here? Why would you pick that up? I could have stayed in the house if we're going to do that.
Yes, exactly.
So Roomba. All right. Well, that's a good list. Oprah's list, not so much, but the tech list I like. You ready for item number 2?
I am indeed.
The Deep Six, number 2.
The Chicago Blackhawks here in Chicago, where I am, are a mess.
Okay.
They're a bad team on the ice, but off the ice, after winning 3 Stanley Cups in short order and a really tightly run organization, run as well as any, honored as such by Sports Illustrated, various other places. The wheels came off a couple of weeks ago. There was a player back in 2010 who was a practice squad player, and he was invited to the video coach's house. The video coach, while he was there, sexually assaulted him. It's unclear whether or not he was drugged or how it took place, but there was a full report came out. It's very ugly. Everybody from the management back then is either gone or were fired. The Blackhawks are going to settle with this guy. But the internet, of course, went crazy. The judgment went crazy.
Right.
Fortunately, nobody seems to be judging the player, the victim in this.
Right.
But a couple of the star players, Jonathan Taves and Patrick Kane, stuck up for a couple of the coaches and management folks who were let go, saying, I feel badly for the victim, but I do want to say these are good guys. And those 2 guys on the team are being barbecued for saying, no, those 2 guys are good guys. Point is, we weren't in the room. We weren't in the room when the assault happened. We weren't in the room when the Blackhawks had their meetings about what they should or should not do. Clearly mistakes were made.
Right.
Yet we jumped to judgment immediately. And I feel like that's what's going on with this Uma Abedin book. But if one good thing comes out of the Blackhawks story, to me, it's that we need to understand that male sexual assault is a thing as well. It takes place. And the assumption that, well, why didn't you just beat the guy up? You're a dude. Why would you allow it to happen? You don't know. You weren't in the room.
Well, you know what? I have literally had guys say that women can't really be raped because they could push the guy off or they could close their legs. What people don't understand is the show of strength and domination and what that can do to somebody. And also, sometimes it has to do with body size. Sometimes it has to do with threats. There's a million things that go on.
Right.
And absolutely, I know for a fact how vicious that experience can be for anyone that's targeted. So yeah, wow.
You need to always take the victim seriously and take an immediate investigation. Don't put it off and get to the bottom of it. So anyway, I wish this player well, and I would like folks to take a deep breath before they throw everyone that was ever in the Blackhawks organization out. The reason I say it ties to Uma Abedin is she's got her new book out.
Yep.
And, Anthony Weiner is the most unfortunately named man in history because his crimes are his name.
Oh, isn't that the truth? Wow,
yeah.
Wacko.
Yeah, it would be, I don't want to give you an equivalent because it just doesn't get any better than Anthony Weiner. Having said that, almost all of us judged Uma Abedin, who has literally been Hillary Clinton's right-hand woman forever, crucial, Hillary Clinton, judged Uma Abedin for trying to stay with her husband, whom she had a child with, when he continued to cheat through text messages and the various self-destructive ways that he did. She finally got
with underage girls.
Underage girls, just a mess. Right. And you could certainly make the argument that the Uma Abedin, Anthony Weiner emails on Uma Abedin's computer, which led to James Comey making a terrible decision to bring up the FBI 10 days before the election in 2016. We'll never know if it got Donald Trump elected, but it sure didn't hurt him. And it definitely hurt Hillary.
It definitely helped him. As she says that in her book, she says, I will take that to my grave. A thought that I cost her, or that this episode cost her the election, goes with me forever. And it's a heartfelt book. I don't know if you saw the Weiner documentary some years back.
I did, where she was like in B-roll in the background and she was clearly miserable.
It was fascinating to me because this guy, and I got to tell you, as a New Yorker, I mean, he seemed like the obvious choice for mayor.
Yep.
He was great. He even though he doesn't look it on first blush, he was electrifying in front of a crowd. He was really terrific. And she backed him. Even when things started to get dicey, she backed him. And he made this documentary. And then as everything was starting to fall apart, he made this ego-driven decision to keep making the documentary. And it almost looked like, this can't be real. You saw this guy watching himself give this mind-blowing appearance on television with the press, in which he tried to defend himself and tried to lie. They went home that night and she's watching him watch himself on TV. And he's going, yeah, I think I handled that really well. And it was horrible because he then went on, I don't know if it was CNN, he was on a local channel. And he was completely falling apart. And he kept saying, I aced that, don't you think? And you see her look at him and her head, she's just shaking her head like, oh my God, what is wrong with him?
Right.
And that's why I kind of didn't get why she kept hanging on, but I did understand that she loved him. She saw the good in him, and she had this little baby with him, and she didn't want that life to fall apart. And ultimately,
and all of that is legitimate. And if anybody's ever been through a situation where you've been separated or divorced, you know how painful it is. And if you truly care about your children, you do try to save it.
And it's interesting because the name of the book is a little confusing. It's called Both /and: A Life in Many Worlds. It makes sense, I guess, if you read the book. It's just a little awkward. It's like, oh, I'd like to see that new book, Both and: A Life in Many Worlds.
Yeah, it's not a great title.
It's a little cumbersome, but it is, I think, going to be a really kind of a must read if you want to take a look at the kind of inside life for what people go through these days in that world when somebody they're attached to is targeted or puts the target on themselves in this case.
Yeah, people were telling Hillary Clinton you had to dump Abedin, and she said, not a chance.
Right.
Loyalty goes both ways, and she is always there for me, and I'll always be there for her. And one of the things that's really been touching about the interview she's done to promote the book is talking about how much little girls would have been inspired by a woman in the White House as president, and how great she thinks Hillary Clinton may have been as president.
Right.
And she feels responsible for it. So I don't know. I didn't know a thing about her other than the public perception.
Right.
And I was touched by, or I am touched by how she's handled herself in these interviews, her honesty, and her ability to move forward.
No, I always liked her. There was an intelligent gentleness, which is a really wonderful combination in someone. So,
all right, we're moving on now to On the Deep Six, story number 3. I have a problem. Well, you know that. You've known me a long time.
Oh, God. Should I make the list now? It would be way more than 6.
Yeah, that would be deeper than 6. My problem is I come from an era, let's call it the 70s and 80s, where you showed respect for authority. Now, I've been fired many times. I've certainly shown a lot of disrespect.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But you show respect for authority in your day-to-day activities, not when they're clearly wrong. I get that's the out, huh? That's the out. But
when they're an idiot, you don't have to respect them.
Exactly. So you can imagine how that would be tough for me, both end. But my problem is, if you really want to set me off, roll your eyes at me. I have a problem with eye rolling. And that's why this okay boomer thing that was such a hot deal a year or so ago. Right. That was like a verbal eye roll. And you're here to tell me that it's even worse with the next generation?
Well, that's the funny part. There's a whole story out. It was in the New York Times recently. It says the 37-year-olds are afraid of the 23-year-olds who work for them. And it talks about how these kids come in and it's kind of like, as they said in the article, it's as old as time, the eye roll, and that kind of thing, like, oh God, but for the most part, you understand that, okay, this person has been here longer than me. They are in a position of authority over me. So for the most part, I kind of gotta suck it up and do what they need me to do. And they're saying, that just doesn't happen anymore. They will do everything. One woman was saying that they would go after her, like she'd send out, a message to like everybody in her department, and she might put, it was on Slack, so they might put like an emoji attached to it, and she would get back, nobody uses that emoji anymore. Apparently, that laughing, crying emoji, which I probably use 3 times a day. It's not cool anymore, but I don't really care. I'll continue to use it because it says something. But, and it goes beyond that. This one woman said, I'm a millennial. She said, I remember when millennials set what was in vogue, everything from the color rose pink, craft beer, Netflix, and being chill. And she said, suddenly they're trying to make me feel like my AARP card is waiting for me in the mailroom. And she said they go after, and they don't really feel any sense of, maybe I shouldn't do this. And one guy said, and I thought this was very interesting. This guy says, if I can find, he's a 41-year-old guy. He says, these younger generations are cracking the code. And they're like, hey, guys, turns out we don't have to do it like these old people tell us we have to do it. We can actually do whatever we want, and we'll be just as successful. He said, and us old people of 41 are like, what's going on here? Because they are literally rolling their eyes, and they're not then embarrassed that you call them on rolling their eyes. They're like, what are you talking about, old man?
Well, the outward disgust and the appalling nature of having to deal with someone older than you that actually employs you, it's got to stop. Yeah. And the only way to stop it is for the ancient 37, 41-year-olds to say to the punk 23 and 24-year-olds, you work for me. I don't care if you don't think I'm cool. This is what's going to happen. And there has to be an establishment. And I find it very hard to say I'm advocating for management, but I apparently am, until people stand up and say that's not acceptable, whether it's the
Right.
eye roll or the verbal smackdown, these little punks are going to continue to kick their ball into my yard and I won't have it.
Well, here's the thing. Millennials, unlikely to do that because they're the ones that started that trend. There was a 60 Minutes segment 14 years ago called The Millennials Are Coming. And in it, one of the people said, these young people come in and they tell you when they take the job what time their yoga class is, and they need to be out of the building during that time. And then they sit there and stare at you like, you want me? You have to understand that I have to leave for my yoga class. I'll be back. And so they kind of started that, but now they're in a position of more authority. They've got Gen Z coming in and doing the same thing. And because no one ever taught them the value of paying attention to a boss, they don't know how to demand it of somebody younger than them. So we're all going to hell. I think that's really what.
Well, since there's no saving it, we're going to move on to story number 4.
Right.
The Deep Six, number 4.
All right, on the Deep Six, 4th story. Let's do a little pop culture roundup here if we can.
Like
Did you
that.
notice that the QAnon knuckleheads spent some time in Dallas the other day waiting for JFK Jr. to return? Try to put that all together in your head.
To return from the dead to reinstate Donald Trump as president.
And not JFK, JFK Jr., who was killed in a plane crash in 1999 in Cape Cod, which is nowhere near Dallas. I don't care how bad your map is.
So was this like mass hysteria? Because how does an enormous group of people all stand around and say, yeah, he's coming and he's going to reinstate him?
There is live video all over of people, phone video that they posted, of course, because they're quite proud of being crazy, of them waiting as the clock ticked down to noon or whatever the time was. And when JFK Jr. didn't show up, there was a discussion of sorts. And they had decided the Rolling Stones were appearing in Dallas that night.
Who are still alive.
Well, as far as we know.
Right.
And that JFK Jr. and JFK Sr. and other possible dead celebrities would show up at the Stones concert. We're here to tell you that didn't happen either.
They haven't had the vaccine. And oh, wait, do you need it in Texas? Maybe you don't need it in Texas.
No, I think you could be jailed if you get it in Texas. All right. So that's
it's interesting. That's like the latest version of drinking the Kool-Aid, I guess.
Yeah. The conspiracy theorists don't do themselves any favor, but QAnon is so off the deep end. It's irretrievable. So I don't worry about the QAnon knuckleheads because it's a small fraction of the population. They get a lot of noise because they're so crazy. You almost have to talk about them.
Right.
But in case you missed that story, how about this? Caitlyn Jenner, who of course previously was Bruce Jenner,
right,
who at the time was married to Kris Kardashian,
right,
who was Kris Jenner,
right.
A lot of ties to OJ here, and
because her husband, her husband was his first name, Kardashian.
Robert
Kardashian was her first husband, and they were tight friends with OJ and OJ's then living wife.
Yeah,
and
Nicole. Yeah.
Yeah. And so.
And Nicole and Kris were friends. Well,
very close.
All this leads to Caitlyn Jenner. I was doing an interview about something else the other day. I'm not quite sure how OJ came up. And he said, yeah, of course OJ killed him. It's obvious.
Yikes. So that must be. Now, the question is Kris Jenner or whatever she's using as a last name now? I think she still uses Jenner, right? Is she going to reach out to Caitlyn and say, you shouldn't be saying that in public? Because everybody's going to assume that she told him.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It's a great point. I hadn't thought about that. Yeah. And really, it's shocking to me because, I firmly believed OJ was innocent.
Okay.
Alec Baldwin, of course, had that nightmare scenario where a woman was killed on the set of his movie Rust.
Oh, my God.
And he seems to be kind of making a public plea. To me, if I'm Alec Baldwin, I stay out of the limelight for the indefinite future, and I work on making sure, and to his credit, he met with the dad and the son who lost the wife and the mother.
Right.
And all of that. But he's sort of getting back into the social media thing and stuff. Are you creeped out by this at all?
Well, I got to say, first and foremost, not always a fan of his big mouth and kind of the scene he makes in New York half the time, but I really like him. I think he's fascinating. And my heart really goes out to him, because this is a life-altering event on every level imaginable. I can't imagine a time when he can just go back to being a celebrity that shows up on Saturday Night Live, an actor who shows up on a movie set. This is something that, and not to mention the fact that he was also the executive producer and a producer on this film. So it's going to hit him on multiple levels. There are going to be lawsuits. There are going to be claims made.
Yep.
And he'll never get past the fact that he was the guy that pulled the trigger that killed his friend.
How could
also the director and wounded the director. So that said, he was trying to escape. Now they have this massive, beautiful old house out in East Hampton that they live in. They have a beautiful apartment in the city. I'm imagining he probably has a place in LA, but they chose to go to Vermont thinking that no one would find them there, which is pretty much impossible right now to find anywhere. No one knows you are. And I guess they rented a house. And his wife has this weird thing. You know, she's that chick who grew up in Boston in a wealthy family, but then suddenly decided she was Spanish and now speaks with a Spanish accent, changed her name. Instead of Hillary, it's Hilaria. And she's done a lot of odd things in the last couple of years.
Very odd. Yeah, very odd.
But so the other day, I guess the press is following them everywhere. Now, doesn't help that she trots all 6 of their kids, their ages 1 through 8, into Starbucks and things like that up there in Vermont. Of course, people are going to see you.
Right.
But so they're all following them everywhere they drive. So he pulls the car over to the side of the road. He gets out and he says, look, I'll talk to you if you promise to stop following my family. She then gets out of the car. She comes over and she tries to talk. And Alec looks at her and says, excuse me, like, shut up. I got this.
Yeah.
And he starts trying to talk to him. He says, I can't tell you exactly anything about the investigation because it's ongoing. He says, you know, this woman was my dear friend. My heart is broken. It was a 1 in a trillion mistake that happened there. So then they start to ask him some more questions, and Hilaria interrupts him and says, you guys, you know what? In a Spanish accent, no details. To which Alec responds, do me a favor. I'm going to answer the question. And she backs off a little bit, and they keep going after him. And at the end of it, he says, okay, please, I've given you everything I can. Will you not follow us anymore? My kids are in the car crying. He goes in the car, drives away. They follow him.
Of course they do. Yeah.
But they were so shocked that he got out to talk to him. They didn't really have a lot to ask him. Like, they ran out of questions because they probably never figured he'd answer any questions for them. And so they were more looking to take pictures and write their own scenario because it was the paparazzi. He did, though, say at one point that it's likely that picture, Rust, will not ever get made. No kidding.
Yeah, which of course makes total sense as well. But we both know this: the paparazzi, in its most negative connotation, which unfortunately is true most of the time, is there to get the picture that they can write the caption for that suits them.
Right. So they're really not
actual story.
Yeah, they're not really interested in what you have to say. They just want the picture, and then you're right, they will invent something.
So it's not a great way to earn a living. Sorry.
Yeah.
All right, let me jump to this. It's a story number 5. Thanksgiving is going to be expensive this year.
Most expensive in history. Yeah.
I don't know how much a turkey normally costs because, you know, when you send me shopping, I go in and go, anybody know where the turkey is?
Not $750, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I go get the turkey and I pay for it and I take it home. And you know, we can have the discussion later if I paid too much. But the price of turkey is expected to hit about $1.36 a pound.
Ooh, boy.
That's $22 for a 16-pound turkey. And it's up about 4 or 5%. But there's also this notion you might not be able to get it.
Right.
Which is going to increase prices and all the sides, all the fixins.
Oh,
you're going to show up on the truck. You're going to be able to get your cranberries. You're going to be able to make your potatoes, all those other things.
Well, it's the price of gasoline has skyrocketed. So shipping costs, even if they can get it to the store, shipping costs are making the prices on pretty much everything go up, up, up. And you may say, okay, 5%. doesn't sound like that much, but it's a big deal when you add everything in for most families. You're just trying to put together, and Thanksgiving, by the way, in the past has always been a fairly affordable outing. It just is not nearly as affordable this year. And that the only good side is you're not having as many people because everybody's still a little bit nervous about COVID. And so you can buy a smaller turkey, you know.
But what are you going to do about the people? This is a big picture question. What are you going to do about the people that aren't vaccinated? Do you invite them or not?
Well, that is, they say, the number one question right now. And a lot of people, they did a quick survey, and they found that people that are asking for you to declare, they're not, I mean, nobody's asking you to, you know, have grandma bring her vaccine card with her to Thanksgiving dinner, but they want to know ahead of time, are you vaccinated if you're coming to my house? And they're saying that they found that people that pose that question are seeing about an 8% drop off in the number of people willing to come. They're coming up with other excuses. And these are people that, by the way, they knew ahead of time were either anti-vax or hadn't had it for one reason or another. And they're not exactly arguing, but they're not committing to that. Now, you say 8% doesn't seem like a lot, although it sort of is. But remember that most families sort of think similarly.
Yeah.
So it really is a lot when you couple that all in, because now you're finding families that actually do disagree with one another. And,
yeah, and the idea that we're still tearing families apart over this is insane on another level.
Yeah.
You know, can't we all get along for one meal? Well, apparently not.
The Deep Six, number 6.
All right, we're going to run out of time, but before we do, and this is a little unfair to play this game with you, but, you know, I got a plug for my regular podcast kind of wrapped up in this as well.
Well, I love this one. I really, really wanted to hear these.
So I spent a couple of days at the Lincoln Museum and Library in Springfield, Illinois. Remember, I'm in Chicago, so it's not that far away. And it's an amazing thing. And Lincoln is the greatest president. He saved the Union. Not taking anything away from George Washington. Without old George and his teeth, Lincoln never would have had the shot. But Lincoln is amazing. I would highly encourage a visit to the library in Springfield if you can. Not just for your kids, but for you as well. And in honor of these shows, which will air on Monday and Wednesday of next week on the Live from My Office feed, where we also place the Deep Six as well, wherever podcasts are, just search Live from My Office. You get the Deep Six and you'll get the Lincoln shows. I'm going to do a Lincoln true or false with you.
Okay.
All right.
Because I am a fanatic for Lincoln. If I was to pick up my computer and walk you upstairs, I could take you on a tour of my little library upstairs, hundreds of Lincoln books.
Of all the books and stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So here's a question. True or false, Lincoln stored papers in his hat?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
He absolutely did. He stored papers inside the hat band, and he apparently had a system where they would be organized around the hat band so he could grab whatever he wanted initially. Well, it's a big hat. There's lots of room up there.
It was a big hat, and he was a big guy. And yeah, that was his own little, I don't know, these days, all of those notes could be on our phones in the notes section. They're in his hat.
How about this? True or false? He was not the main speaker at Gettysburg.
Oh, 100% true.
Yeah, how did you know that? I didn't know that.
Hello. I do store what I read. Yeah, he only spoke. I don't. What is it? 273 words or something. The Gettysburg Address, and the guy that was the main keynote speaker spoke for several hours, and he wrote to Lincoln, and he said, "I only wish that I had packed as much into my, long diatribe as you did into those few spare words."
Now, here's what I don't know. Did this guy, Edward Everett, that you're mentioning, the main speaker there, did he open for Lincoln or did Lincoln open for him? Because you don't want to follow a 2-hour speech.
No, Lincoln opened for him. He was actually very sick when he got down there. He had an illness that had him so feverish by the time he got back to the White House. He had to go to bed for a number of days to recover. But so he was there simply to sort of open for the mains, because everybody knew Edward Everett. He was like considered the greatest speaker in the country. And Lincoln, jotted these notes down and kind of refined it a little bit on the train down there and spoke as only he could with that enormous heart and that enormous mind. And again, no ego. So with this guy, so it was simply, I'm going to say what needs to be said, and that'll be enough.
Another question for you, Lincoln, true or false? Lincoln is in the Wrestling Hall of Fame.
He is indeed. He was an incredible wrestler.
God, you have this stuff down.
Well,
you know your Lincoln.
I do know my Lincoln. Wish he was my Lincoln. Okay, that's weird.
No, it's okay. Is this true or false? Lincoln created the Secret Service.
He did. It was really through the Pinkerton guards that he had on board that were trying to help him. But obviously, it didn't actually get established until after he was assassinated.
The actual designation to create the Secret Service was for the Secret Service's original purpose, which it still has as one of its charters today, and that's fighting counterfeiters.
Right.
And right. They weren't tasked with the idea of protecting the president until many years and a couple of assassination attempts, successfully and unsuccessfully later on. But that was done either on the day of Lincoln's assassination in the White House or very close to it, which is, thick with irony.
Did you know that Lincoln's son, Robert, was also on scene for the two following assassinations of presidents?
That's wild.
Isn't that amazing?
Wild.
Yeah.
Yeah. And tell me if this is true or false, because I also visited Lincoln's tomb, which is amazing. Mm-hmm. And it's all in Springfield, which isn't a big town. Mm-hmm. Grave robbers tried to steal Lincoln's corpse.
Yes, they did. And in fact, they buried it now so deep. They buried it so deep underground and filled it with concrete and stone, etc., to make it irretrievable.
I found out from a historian when we were doing the interviews for the shows, it'll be on Live from my office next week, on the 8th and the 10th of November, the grave robbers were geniuses. They were trying to get a counterfeiter out of prison. They were going to ransom Lincoln's body for release of the counterfeiter because they needed the counterfeiter and the counterfeiter / forger out of jail. And their plan was, and keep in mind, this is a couple of months or more before the internet was invented. Their plan was to, in 1876, was to steal the body,
right,
bury the body on the beach, whatever beach was nearby. I don't remember that part of the story, but then shuttle the body through various barns and farms until they got it to a place where they could keep it until the ransom was delivered. These geniuses were caught fairly quickly.
I would say so.
You're way too good at this. Let me see if I can give you one more. Did you know?
We're waiting to trick me. I know it.
Well, you know all of them. True or false? Lincoln had a patent for a product.
He did. It had something to do, I believe, with a boat, getting the boats, because when he was a kid,
look at you.
He used to work on these like barges, small barges that would go down the Mississippi River. And he worked on a patent that would lift the boat up to get over shoals. Yeah,
exactly. That's exactly right. And last one on the Lincoln true or false, which you've scored a perfect score on, I might add. How many times did Lincoln sleep in the Lincoln bedroom? That's not true or false. That's a question.
No, none.
Exactly.
Yeah, I know, which is a great disappointment to me because I thought about donating tons of money to any president that would allow me to trade that for a night in the Lincoln bedroom. And then I realized it doesn't really matter because there was no Lincoln in the Lincoln bedroom.
When he occupied the White House, the Lincoln bedroom was used as his personal office.
Right.
So why did they call it the Lincoln bedroom?
Probably because they just needed to move some crap in there and like put the beds in there. And all right, that'll be all right. We need that other space.
So it's like all of us. We needed a junk room.
Right, exactly. And that became the junk room, I guess. But it's Lincoln junk, which I love.
Monday and Wednesday, the 8th and the 10th of November on Live from my office, where you also get the feed for this Deep Six and the future Deep Six episodes we do. you can hear those Lincoln shows from the museum. Well, I hope we've helped people. Again, we've given them 6 stories, Patty. We can only do so much.
And it shows that we, A, can count from week to week. And B, there are so many more stories to tell that it's a little frustrating. I vote for next week, the Deep 17.
Well, there are a lot. We didn't get to the California condor story or the golden penis story.
Yeah,
those are both
I really want to
stories,
know. Yeah,
and they're not connected.
I love that you're teasing the golden penis story for next week.
All right, we're going to have to rewrite that because that sounded really funny coming out of you. Yeah. In the meantime, we thank you for listening. Check out the show notes and listen to Patty on, I almost said Z100. Those are the days.
Yeah.
Listen to Patty on CBS-FM in New York in the morning.
Where I never get to talk about Lincoln.
Where she never talks about her favorite topic, her favorite president. And again, listen to Live from My Office as one of your favorite podcasts. Thank you, Patty.
Thank you so much. Don't forget, pattysteele.com and
The Cochran Show at gmail.com, or go to cochranshow.com. I almost forgot myself. pattysteele.com or cochranshow.com. Those are the 2 places you can get the podcast as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. The Deep Six. Subscribe, rate, follow, or review at pattysteele.com or cochranshow.com.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.